Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Unicorn Wellness featured member vlog. UnicornWellnessStudio.com is a membership-based online wellness center anchored in 30-minute mat-based workouts, a monthly guided meditation, new and full moon tarot readings, all based and written in a 4-week cycle format in accordance to the current astrology and moon cycles. It is a community filled with incredible women sharing their personal magic in all kinds of ways. Each month, I feature a unique unicorn and share her story, why she gets on the mat, in meditation, and in the tarot on a regular weekly basis. We explore how it supports her expanding her particular magic in the world and why she'll never go without this community or its practices. Meet Katelyn Alain. Hi, Katelyn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. Okay, so I'm going to sell us out a little bit. We're in the same neighborhood.
Yes.
Which is really fun. And so will you just share with our community, with the other unicorns, who you are, your magic in the world first, just about you?
Okay, yes, no problem. I am first and foremost a painter. So I am a figurative oil painter, and I go to work every day, and I usually work a 9 to 5 type of situation, not right now, obviously. But I try to unite the abstraction of the mind, the way that I retain things, the distortion of memory, with what the eye actually sees, in order to create paintings that truly reflect the way I see and experience reality. So that's in a nutshell what my work is about.
And the piece behind you is yours, yes?
It is. It's not the full thing, but that is my painting as well. So there's an aspect of figuration and an aspect of realism, but really it's this sort of strangeness of a child zooming through a dreamscape of sorts.
I love your work. I mean, that's part of why I reached out to you, because I was like, it's cool. And
Thank you.
I love it because one, my husband is a painter but artist, uses mixed media now, and so really genuinely into work and artists. And I loved your pieces. I was like, ooh, they're like dreamy, but this idea of like memories in how they really function, or how we think of or feel memories, because your work to me is very felt, right, rather than like seen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I go to work, it just comes out of me. I don't have much control over the outcome. I don't plan ahead. I mean, they're portraits, but they're more like portals into this dreamscape where I can then express what's really going on inside. So it is all about my responses to the current world, to events in my life, to current events, to just all the things that really stick with me. It all comes out in the painting process. So it's really like a flow state that I get into, and I don't know what's going to come out, and it's really fun actually to make the work and then to realize what it's about afterwards. So.
Well, I think, again, so unique and so beautiful. And I really, like, they very much spoke to me, right? Because you can tell that they're this kind of channeled experience. It is like a frozen, like a section of a dream. You know, it feels like you kind of like push into it and then come out of it. And I thought, oh, okay. So energetically, I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
And I love to hear too that you don't map them out or plan them out. You're like, I don't know what it's going to be. I just kind of show up.
Yeah, I often begin with a vision. So sometimes I wake up in the morning with a very clear vision, but in fact, it's not clear. It's like a dream where you have a sense of its clarity, and yet it's a pure abstraction. There's no actual concrete, specific imagery. So it's like I begin with this sort of strange vision, and sometimes that's just a starting point for how to enter into the work. And then it becomes whatever it's going to become. It's really a surprise to me every time. And when I enter into this flow state, it's like I forget to eat, I forget where I am. I move into these weird postures, and I'm like, oh, I'm looking at this upside down, and I just I just do that until either an alarm goes off or I'm just so exhausted I have to stop. So
I was going to say, do you set alarms because being an artist in a modern world, you're like, I got to pick up my kid. Like,
well, exactly. And that's something I didn't mention. I'm also a mother. And so yes, of course, I do have to set an alarm sometimes. And I really set it way ahead of time because I will ignore that alarm. If I'm in the middle of a passage and I'll be like, my alarm's going off, and I'll just keep working. So yeah, I have to get on top of that, and I have to show up to work completely fed, and I've taken care of myself beforehand, and I'm not going to overdo it. So I've learned how to kind of adapt to the way that I am when I work.
How long have you always worked in this medium? Have you always painted?
For as long as I've been making artwork, yes. So I didn't learn how to oil paint until I was in college. I mean, I have a BFA in painting. I also have an MA in art history and painting, and then I have an MFA in painting studio art as well. So I've been doing this for a long time, and so I have been adapting to oil paint, and for whatever reason, the juiciness of it, the way that it moves, it enables me to elaborate on this abstract idea and turn it into a language of color. So.
Is it because I am the novice here? I'm like the wifey to the painter. I will say really dumb things, but I like work. You know what I mean? Oil is one of the hardest to work with, though, isn't it? Because at the rate it dries, or no? Like, doesn't it have its own kind of temperament?
It really does, but I think when you learn to paint, all materials have whatever they're going to do. It's like all of it is difficult, I feel like. For whatever reason, I've always found oil paint to be easy, and maybe that's why I stick with it.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to work in acrylic because it dries too quickly. So I think it depends on your technique or what works for you, and what you've learned too. I mean, when I first learned painting, that was one of the first things that I learned, and so maybe that's why I have more ease with it.
Yeah, it means it's like I look at it the same way as I look at fitness and movement formats, right? Like I love all movement and they all serve a purpose, but what resonates with us, and then I go, well, what's the goal? Because then depending on what you choose is like, well, what are you trying to produce, or what do you
Right, exactly. And I mean, I started painting because there was nothing out there in the world that represented the way I experienced life at all. And so I had to come up with my own system, my own language, and my own ways to take that information and then turn it into the language of paint, like poetry. So it's a long process, and I've been working at it, and it's a challenge, but it's like that's what I spend my life doing. So it's a worthwhile challenge.
So how old are you? Because I love women sharing their ages.
I just turned 40 this past year.
Yeah.
And I love it. As a birthday gift to myself, I went on a pilgrimage. I went traveling by myself. I went to Greece. I went to Crete. I walked around. It was incredible. What's amazing to me is that I allowed myself to do that and to just leave my life for 2 weeks and just do that. So I feel like turning 40 is like, you can do these things because you've been on the earth a little bit longer now, and you're like, well, you may as well follow your heart and your research, and which is what I am always researching something in the background.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you went on like a goddess pilgrimage.
I did. I mean, honestly, it was a pilgrimage. And what I thought I was going for was to go pray at the Temple of Athena. And what it ended up being about was more ancient than that. It ended up being about Bronze Age goddesses that spoke to me like in a language I understood and I thought was just so amazing. And I didn't know that this vibrant civilization existed in the way that it did. And it was really life-changing to learn about it and to continue my research after the trip and that kind of thing. So yeah, age is a funny thing. I feel like it opens up avenues for you because you just don't care anymore. And you're kind of over that hump where the external self is somehow more important than your internal research. And at least for me, that's what it was like. So.
I loved, like, cause I'm turning 42, so we're the same age.
Okay.
But I was so excited to turn 40. Like, I'm a super nerd in that way. I was like, finally, like, the number will balance out some of the information and expertise,
Yes.
I felt like was very discredited because of either age,
right,
or gender, or
right,
because I appeared younger, or
because you look young.
yeah, always. And I'm a smaller body, like in stature.
Right.
So like people, they're like, oh, you're tiny. And I'm like, I'm just a person. But
Right. But you're also an expert in your field, and so am I. And it's like,
right.
This has also been a year of, like, I gave a lecture in March, right before it all stopped because of this COVID thing. And it was so nice to kind of be seen as an expert, to be seen as someone who's older and has been around for a while and has information about what it's like to be an artist, what it's like to work with galleries, what it's like over the long run. And obviously that will continue. So, to some 40 is very young. So it's like, there's the full spectrum, I know. But,
totally. But it's 40 still has, and in my peer group and in our community, there's a lot of resonance to this, that 40 is finally like I don't care anymore. I'm just getting loud. I'm tired of people's opinions. I'm tired of their expectations. Like, I'm done. I'm just done.
Yeah. And then it opens up like, well, what do I want in my life? How do I want to live my life? And how do I want my values to stand taller than anything else? And then to adapt yourself to that. And it's really fun.
I love it. Okay. So I didn't send you a list of questions, and I actually don't. I mean, we have certain things we want to cover, but I'm not trying to be odd either, or like a catch-22 kind of thing. Do you find your work to be purposefully feminist or divine feminine oriented, or to have a focus on the feminine in one way or the other?
Yes. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but part of what I want my work to do is to speak to those who are unseen in the history of art. And that includes women, that includes children. And it's a little bit kitschy to paint children, but I'm trying to kind of ride that edge in my work, where I'm giving credence and importance and respect to people who do not receive that in our society. And have not through the history of art. And part of what precipitated my most recent body of work about this new American epic, where these children, mostly girls, are sort of rowing their way to a new future, was going to the Metropolitan Museum and leaving feeling like, where are we? Where's our power? Where are the women? Where are the children? They're not just idly by next to their husbands, and even though I knew that they weren't in the museum my whole life, I suddenly left with this feeling that I needed to do something about it, that my work needed to portray those who are unseen. And so my work is really a tribute to the unseen daughters of history.
I love this because we do, as a family, we spent a lot of time in museums, and my husband's an artist, and the littlest seems to be his jam too so far. And so we spend a lot of time looking at work. And I went to an all-women's college. I graduated from an all-women's college. I absolutely wear and carry the badge of feminist, and like all of its heaviness and all of its stuff and its pluses and its minuses. So it's interesting to me. I'm going to share like a personal thing, because we've been looking at artwork for forever, right? And all over the world. And I don't go into some of the technique, or I won't be able to tell you who the artist is, but I like how things make me feel. I just go on the intuitive portion of it. And Mateo's been great, because he's like, you always have something to offer, so just stick with that side, because you don't need to do the other portion of it. But being in museums and galleries all over the world, I went to one museum in DC a couple of years ago, and it was all female work. And I didn't know what work was there. I didn't know what we were walking into. It was a random trip with a girlfriend. And we're like, oh, we'll go to this museum, right? Because
awesome.
And the experience of walking through an entire space of
Mhm.
female work was unbelievably unique.
Yeah.
And I thought, how weird. Educated feminists, like really understood, not hypercritical eye, but aware eye,
Yeah,
and thought, whoa, that's a completely different experience.
it is.
Completely. And then you start to add up how many pieces you go look, because I know I'm just trying to
Yeah.
help because a lot of our viewers probably won't know.
Right.
When you go look at things like how many are women and how many are men, just
Right.
simple.
Right.
And it's mind blowing to have that
Mhm.
sensation, feeling
Yeah.
of it being all female generated. It
Right.
blew my mind, like the work or not. Like I didn't like all of it.
Right. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's so great that you had that experience and saw that, because most of the time we're just invisible, just
Yeah.
completely invisible. And it really wasn't until very recently that women were involved at all, even in archaeology, in history, in reinterpreting history with another viewpoint, with any kind of female perspective, which is so vital to understanding ancient times, where it was a female-centered experience.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and
so
again, full circle, you going to Crete, my brain goes to like the Minoan, like, you have
yes.
this matriarchal culture of like, because Crete's on one of my lists, like for lots of reasons,
Oh, you need to go.
right? And it has presented itself to me in very unique ways that I'm like, ooh, okay, that I can just like the feeling of it there.
Yeah. Um,
I don't even know what that would feel like.
Well, I've studied this stuff. I have a minor in art history, and I think I read maybe one paragraph ever on the Minoans, and it was lumped in with the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, and it was like, and that's all there is to it. And it's so wrong, because that civilization blew my mind. Like it was so beautiful. It was so, they played games. There was a lot of joy. There's the artifacts are so symbolically nuanced. And as someone who studies symbols, art symbols for a living, I understood all of it immediately.
Yeah.
And to have this museum filled with thousands of goddesses and these beautiful postures, all of them, with their hands up, really in reverence. And it's a kind of allowance of this spiritual higher self into the body. And all of it was really about the body being a mirror of the earth, and the fertility of the earth. And it all made so much sense and is just not at all taught. And I really left feeling like, oh, wow, this is a huge disservice that this is not, that its influences, to which since I came back, I've been studying the influences of the Minoans through Egypt, through the Mediterranean, up through Europe into the Celtic regions, and also out through India and the Persian area, and looking at the artifacts and the imagery and the crossover of influences, and it's incredible. So it's mind-blowing, and there's so much to it, and there's so much to be discovered now from a female perspective.
It's like this like little hidden secret still. Like there's these layers of hidden,
Unbelievably.
and the postures. I mean, my brain just goes to the posture of receiving. So just
Yes.
from a coaching perspective, when I'm coaching, I'm like, mostly when it comes to women, I'm coaching to receive. We're built physically, functionally to receive. It is ingrained, but we don't know how to do it. And this is, so, I mean, so much, and I'm, to talk about and to explore, but I just love the layers of it. And for years too, in other aspects, Mateo can vouch for it again, that I'm like, where are the women? Like where? And in particular, I'm going to say, I'm going a little off the deep end today, but like, where are the mothers in this? The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world, but we tend to look at that. We're still not looking at that.
Yeah, interestingly, what really struck me, I think, studying these ancient artifacts and the ancient representations of the female and of the goddess and of the divine, was that life was never separated from the spiritual or the divine. And so when you study ancient art, you're studying spiritual art. because life was never removed from the spiritual. And all of this connection to this higher self is always through the woman, through the creative aspect of the body. And it's wonderful that I found you, because you really provide that element also, where you are getting in touch with your body, keeping your body as a vessel for the divine. And that's what we all have. That's our only way of experiencing life. And that's it's so vital. And it's wonderful to connect with other people that see it and to feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a beautiful segue too. We'll just make a perfect little segue. But it's nice because you and I, before this moment, have not talked about your work, have not made these connections.
Yeah.
And that's also just such a gift. It's like this little magnetic calling between both of us. Like, I have a real thing about the Minoans and Crete, and
and so do I.
I'm like,
you can't learn about it and study it and not come away entirely moved and affected.
Yeah.
And it really takes also, I feel like, for me, it took going there and experiencing the artifacts themselves to get the power from it, and to then realize, walking the landscape on my own 2 feet, that I'm walking that same land and cultivating those same thoughts and those same feelings, and aligning myself with that same energy, which is just so fabulous.
Well, and then to bring it in and to bring it through art into, Brooklyn and New York. I think it's like, I don't know. I would imagine that perhaps there's this element of feeling like the time traveler.
Totally. But I also feel like if, you come back to your life changed, and you realize that all the systems are wrong, and that you've been oppressing yourself in many ways, and you've been taking all that stuff on. I mean, I've known this for years. At the same time, it's at a certain point, like, I've reached my limit, and I really feel like all of our energies right now need to be focused on how to improve the structures, what we do want in our life, how we can honor our bodies moving forward, how we can respect each other more, all of those things, which I feel like when we go inside and we meditate on these things, we need to be coming up with the life that we do want, that honors who we really are and honors our bodies, which subliminally and subconsciously we have been oppressing. So
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes. Okay, well, let's make a tiny transition.
Okay.
And a little bit of a caveat too is that although it is, workouts and fitness and movement that typically, it has been my path, number one. Two, typically brings people to me, is often looked at and disregarded as not spiritual, not a healing capacity and pattern, and that I don't genuinely look at the work that I teach as fitness for years now. Right. That it is a reclamation of self. It is embodiment, and the embodiment making the soul more comfortable in the physical vessel, knowing that we have to deal with both of them. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate and love when people see that aspect of it too. Yeah. Because that's where it's at for me. It's like movement for movement's sake is cool and all, but it'd be like painting your house versus painting work. It's not the same process. So how did you find Unicorn Wellness? Because I don't even know this.
You know who? It's another Unicorn member. Jana Baccio told me about you.
Okay.
Well, she's like, hey, you seem really witchy. Do you want to come to this full moon thing? And I was like, you caught me. I'm a total witch. And yes. So when I came to that first event, I was just like, oh my God, these are my people. And that was it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm hooked. So I did your free month, and I felt like, oh, I can't live without this. So I kept going, and I'm so glad.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So it was like kind of a cold thing. You're like, all right, yeah, I'm coming to the full moon ritual. So in Brooklyn, one of the benefits of being in Brooklyn before we were in quarantine was that we met as a community monthly, and that is my first, remembrance of you also, but I didn't know, so that
was the first time I showed up, and I was like, okay, who are these people? What is this? I don't, I've been following the moon cycles for ages now. I manifest with the moon. I align my cycles to the moon cycles instead of the calendrical year. I've been doing that for a while because I feel like it fits my personal rhythm better, fits my body, fits my energy levels. So I was already aligned with that aspect of it, and doing my own personal meditations on that front. But and my personal work, and when I arrived though, I felt like, oh, here are all these people in my neighborhood doing the same thing. And I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh, I didn't know. Like I'm just such a loner. I go off and I do my own thing, and I'm totally fine with that. Like I've never been bored in my life. Like my mind, I just let my I just do my thing and I love it. And but what's so nice is finding other people that do the same, and it's so lovely. Like on that first, I met Lisa Tharps, who's so talented and so amazing, and like she helped me right before I did my recent lecture. So I feel like immediately I connected right away to other unicorns. I feel like they're really special. So yeah,
It's
no.
true, because I see it on this side, and then I think now members really do see it, especially in Brooklyn, because we had been able to meet monthly as a community face to face. Unicorns are a very unique and special soul. Like, really. I don't say that lightly. I have been coaching and teaching for 23 years at this point, and the magnetism and energy that it brings together, it's very unique. It's a very open souled, seeker, genuine, like there's genuine heart. There's all kinds of humanity. We all got our blocks and our issues, but there is this like pristine, like, the symbolism of unicorn, which is why I didn't even choose it. It was gifted to me, and I was like, unbelievable, this is the name I have to use. But it's, it's about healing, like, being able to bestow healing, hope, and infinite potential. And I do see that as the heart of the unicorn member, that we're real and honest and we got all of our stuff and we human, but that hope for humanity and the willingness to continually believe in it and aim for it and work for it is very particular to our members.
Yeah, and it just seems like everyone I've met is out there doing such good for the collective that I just can't even believe it. I'm like, look at you, like, look how amazing you are. And it's so fabulous. I love it.
I'm hearing it reflected, because more and more, this is why I started doing these featured members, because I'm like, y'all don't realize how cool you all are.
Right.
And like, because we're online also. So like, you came to a community event, but I've been teaching online for 7 years now. And the community events have always been like, we've done them forever, but all over the place, and like literally all over the globe, and not as consistently as we had been in the last year. And so it's sometimes we miss each other, and I'm like, oh, you all need to know who you're swimming with, because they are really interesting, unique people, mostly women, not specific to it, but the divine feminine work tends to call to that, although everybody needs it. But I've always said that, our community, we have everything we need, literally. I mean, like between the artists and the makers and the therapists and the practitioner, you need somebody in that group. It's there.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just back to why I feel like I stick with doing what you do, is not only do I look forward to it every day, because it's calming. Like, there you are with your simple introduction every time. And I'm like, here I am doing something tiny and mighty. But I really will notice days later, like, oh, I can do that now, or I can move my arm in a way that I couldn't before, or my lower back is improved, or whatever it is. It's a huge benefit. And I feel like I tell everybody I know about it, because I tried to get my sister to join. She lives in the south of France, and she's busy right now. Obviously, it's a little bit crazy in the world. But it's like, I tell everyone, and it's just so beneficial. And,
well, you see, because you got invited, and Jane is a friend of mine and close now too. We were, just connected because of kids at school. And year really, and now I'm like, she's my sister, like.
So great.
And I also like look at it and I go, okay, so you were kind of in, she was actually, interestingly enough, I'm going to sell her out a little bit to the membership. She was a little bit like this, she was like, I'm all in for the moon ritual, but I don't know about this practice and this movement.
Yeah.
She's like totally in now, which is hysterical.
Yeah.
And you seem like you were like, nope, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Were there resistances to Unicorn Wellness, or what were they, or what are they, that you...
Well, I will say at the beginning of 2019, I told you before that when I paint, I get into these weird postures sometimes that I'm like, I'll find myself like looking at the painting upside down, and then all day I'm going back and forth and twisting into these weird motions. And I really hurt my back somehow by continuing to do those postures and not know what I was doing for 6 hours straight without taking a break. And at the beginning of 2019, I hurt my back so badly that I couldn't really even walk. I couldn't bend down to tie my shoelaces. I couldn't bend at all. And by avoiding these movements, I weakened all the muscles around all my joints, which were inflamed. And I was a mess, is what it comes down to. And it was really the straw that broke the camel's back was when my mother-in-law, who was an occupational therapist, she's like, let me go get you a cane. It looks like that would help you to walk. And I'm standing there and I'm actually considering walking with a cane because I was having so much pain and so much trouble. And that's what led me to be in physical therapy for 4 months, 3 times a week. I went and it was like I needed to gain that muscle back. I needed to stretch and push my body into positions. It was rough. So 2019 I was a total mess. Totally couldn't move, and everything would trigger my issues. And then I'd be like out for a couple days or sometimes a week. And so that's all to say that doing the unicorn practice on a regular basis keeps me out of physical therapy. And it keeps my body moving and bending into all the ways where, like, I used to prevent myself from moving in those ways because it hurts so much. So for me, it's just vital that I keep doing it. But also I really enjoy it. Like I come off the mat feeling so much better. I've stretched myself. I've moved my SI joint, which is usually totally inflamed. And it's so great. I just look down at my mat. I'm just like, yes, Unicorn Wellness.
That's awesome. Did you have, okay, so prior to the injuries and the issue, and this is a classic unicorn thing too. I tend to end up with like the people who are like, I just don't want to not move again. And I was injured and this is the only thing that saved me. I'm sitting my booty right here. Did you have a movement practice at all before this?
So I'm an extremely athletic person and I was moving a lot beforehand. In fact, that might have actually been part of why I hurt my back so badly, because I was doing things like burpees and like excessive movement, like just really aggressive workouts before I started getting these chronic back issues. So I've always moved my body and tried to do yoga, but when this whole thing happened with suddenly me falling apart, I stopped it all because I was afraid. I was afraid of the pain. I was afraid of the movement, and that's kind of what precipitated the injuries. So.
And you and I have also communicated, but loosely. So there's things I'm genuinely asking right now because I'm filling in some of the steps too. So you have a compromised immune system though.
Yeah.
So what compromises it?
Well, I have asthma and I've had that my whole life. And I have other issues. I don't actually know what all of my issues are.
Yeah.
I feel like even my back issues are sort of somewhat undiagnosed. And I had on my calendar before this whole pandemic, to make appointments with the orthopedist and all of these things that I need to do. So it's other than asthma, I'm not sure, but I have all kinds of food sensitivities, and I have to be really careful about eating clean and that kind of thing. No sugar, whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting because as I listen to it, I go, oh.
My son just ran by.
I saw.
Underwear.
I love it. Real life, y'all. If you saw my post yesterday on Instagram, I was like doing my practice, and I was like, do the super speed, and like my kids are coming in like twice, and I was like, no, this is real life.
Right.
What we do around here.
That just happened.
Yeah. So because listening to you, it does sound like your body reacts as an autoimmune system, to movement. Because I was very similar. And I worked in the fitness industry and very movement and athletic. And I would just get pushed to this place. It took me forever to recover, like not normal. And it took forever to get diagnosed. And so part of these workouts is you don't have to have an injury. You don't have to have an illness.
Oh, it's still so beneficial.
But they're uniquely structured to support an immune system to keep it healthy because we're working with the body rather than against it. And so it's like that fitness aspect of it. I love to lift. I used to train power lifters like way back, and I totally respect it. But as a culture, we tend to pound the body with willpower via a masculine perspective.
Right.
Women can do it. But we forget about working with the system in these moderate patterns.
Yeah. And I think often for women, it's like a punishment of some sort, a way to get the body you want without feeling like you own it, without feeling like, hey, look how my body changed. But it's like, you never absorb the feeling that you have expanded or that you're moving with more flow and ease because you want to move with more flow and ease. It's because, to look a certain way. And I think a lot of us kind of reject exercise for that reason. Because in our society, it's really like a kind of vanity. So
this is huge. And I find this interestingly as what I would say our audience is for Unicorn Wellness and our membership is that because we are more spiritually minded and connected, or divine feminine connected and lunar energy connected, which is different, that community will be like, I'm not working, like we will actually avoid body work to our detriment because it doesn't matter, like on the tone of feminists and of equality and being looked at as a mind and a creative rather than a vessel.
Right. Well, that disconnect is everywhere. I mean, it's ingrained in our society to have this disconnect from our bodies as if somehow our higher self, our brains are disconnected from the actual self.
Right. And I'm all like, no, I don't really care what size you are on the mat. And I don't care how far your arm's going to move. What I care is, do you feel good? Do you feel safe in this vessel?
Yeah.
Can you go, I appreciate you. And I remember when you couldn't do that. And it's okay that you can't do that today. Or like, right on, you did that today.
Yeah.
And the other beautiful thing about our membership is that it's really diverse in ages and body shape and size and capability, yet seems to still speak. So I love that. So if I'll put words in your mouth, and if I'm wrong, you correct me, but Unicorn Wellness, like as a practice, really supports your magic in the world, because otherwise you couldn't paint. You couldn't be doing the things that
is 100% true. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can't do half the stuff on the mat. I see you doing it on the video screen and I'm like, oh no, I don't know what she's doing.
Oh, sister, no.
I can't lift my leg like that. I can't even point my toe like that. But the funny thing is that after a couple months of doing this, suddenly I find myself able to point my toe. And for me, it's huge. And I'm like, I could do it. And they're like, I don't look like, I can't do what you can do, but it's like, for me, I can actually feel the progress. And then I feel like I've accomplished something. So it's, and it's so nicely progressive that I can't wait to see what I can accomplish in 2 more months, So.
Yeah. I love that too, because that's the point, because there's a lot of people too who are like, I can't do what you're doing. And I'm like, whoa, Western culture way too far. As a teacher, I'm there to guide. And hopefully there's an aspirational aspect. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I should, hopefully, but that's not the expectation of the member. And hopefully my cueing in the setup is not that you have to. It's just that I cue you all through. You do as much as you can.
Right.
But by doing as much as you can and listening, you all progress faster. Like,
a lot of times if I look at you on the screen and I think, oh, I can't do that. No. And my brain will be like, no. And then I just listen. I stop looking at the screen and I'm like, hey, look at me, like I'm moving into this position. And
And it
then,
works.
yeah, I mean, it's so funny because it's like, of course, that's so obvious, but it's really like, it's also remarkable.
It's
So,
but that's the thing is I don't think it is obvious. And I think that
yeah,
as the teacher and the nerdy teacher who wants all of the students to really get it,
right,
like, that's my goal is for you all
yes,
to get it at
right,
some level, feel empowered. Is that our concepts of fitness, of being a student,
yeah,
our concepts of perfectionism and what
yeah,
constitutes as a movement practice or a fitness practice
hmm,
is so different than the reality of it. If we would just
yeah,
calm down, listen, do what
yeah,
we can,
hmm,
we actually progress faster.
right. And stop being so I mean,
Yes.
I am very self-critical, so I will like immediately say no and like be mad at myself, just like in a dumb way, like
Yeah.
that. I just do that, and then I learning to be like, oh no, I think I can do this maybe next week if I keep trying, and like my leg doesn't go off the floor, but if I keep pushing against that muscle, maybe next week it might move in a centimeter.
Do you feel like you've learned some life lessons in different ways because you're practicing in the body now?
um, I do feel like I'm able to move through the world with much more ease. Uh, and I think this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, or any kind of Pilates movement at all. So having, I do find myself reminding myself to sort of um, be taller within myself. And for some reason that kind of more strict posture feels nice, and it makes me feel like I'm moving through the world with more empowerment.
Yeah, that's totally the word. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, do you okay, so we're recording this
Yeah.
during the pandemic. Um, do you feel like your unicorn wellness practice has a different space or how does it support you in life these days? I'll put it that way.
Okay. It is vital these days. Um, I think we were talking before we started
Yeah.
recording about these big ups and downs where I would find myself weeping in one moment, and I'm not sure if I was talking to you about this, but not being able to balance sorrow and sadness and loss with beauty and joy and wanting to feel good during my day, and also the anxiety and the stress. And this wellness practice on the mat is vital to come back and focus and recenter, to come back into my body when I've gone somewhere else, somewhere very, very unpleasant, and to come back and recenter, and then meditate or pray or whatever you want to call it. But it's become so vital. I have not missed a day of your practice since this began. And it's necessary.
I think that's so amazing because I did genuinely, when we launched an online offering, it was because it's what I needed. And I'd been working in the fitness and wellness industry for years.
Yeah,
And I just thought none of that's working for me. Right. And I do manage depression and anxiety, seasonal disorder, in the Wayback Machine, anxiety and panic attacks for real.
yeah,
Um, and I was very committed, not zero judgment, but for myself, not taking chemical medications to manage it. And
yeah,
so it was like years of a process to figure out what would return me back, what would help bring me back to level when it
right,
was harder to get into joy and beauty, knowing that it was there.
yeah,
And so this pandemic is odd in so many ways because I feel like I've never made more sense as a teacher, but it has returned me to remembering those feels, right? Of
yeah,
like, my mat is my life right now
yes,
because I'm going through the same pendulum swings as everyone else. And I think uniquely because you and I are both in New York, in Brooklyn,
yeah,
it's no joke. Like, you can feel the fear and the anxiety and honestly the death in the air. Like, you can feel it. And
yeah,
although we are safe and we are healthy,
hmm,
we're sitting in the center of it.
Yeah.
So
And I think it's, at this point, I don't know anyone that doesn't know someone else who has also passed away from this. So, I mean, last week, my sister-in-law's mother passed away from the virus, and it's just so hard to navigate real loss. And I'm an extreme empath also. So
yeah.
I feel everything. If someone else is feeling something, I feel it too. And so coming back to this sort of vital center is just, it's the only thing that you can do. You know, it's really the only thing that you can come back to within yourself to gain any kind of remembrance of who you want to be. And then to kind of bring out those things so that you can be that. Yeah. It's a very strange time to be alive. So
It is. It's one of those, I think the practice, like, again, because I hate the idea of it being, but sharing what practices actually really work to bring us to calm, to bring us to capable, to return us to, like, there was a great article and I shared it in the private group. It was shared by another unicorn mom. It was in the New York Times about, like, spacing out all the time, and that we're experiencing trauma as a collective.
yeah.
So if someone has not genuinely experienced trauma before, it is completely disorienting.
And it's new. It's a new feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does make you kind of wander around, and it's harder to get focused or grounded, and even just to do the basics. And
Yeah.
so, and then people go, well, okay, fitness, like, I think they get, and we get how meditation should help us.
Right.
But
It's very hard to stop your brain and do it, but yeah.
Yeah, but a movement practice as a physical human allows us to be doing
Yeah.
while it sorts out energies and emotions. And it is my lifeline right now of when I start to feel too much of the down, like, oh, this is probably not healthy and going to help anybody, and certainly not my kids and my partner and our community. Like, I'm going to go get on the mat.
Yeah.
And instantaneously, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You can sense a shift afterwards. Yeah. It can change everything, if you're spiraling and then you center and you focus. And it also helps, just kind of like when you do a guided meditation, it helps to have your voice there every day going, now move your body into this position. And you're like, okay, let me do that. And there's something very calming and comforting about having that there too, where it's like, here's someone that's going to tell me exactly what to do right now.
Right?
when I can't feel like an adult, or if I don't feel like a mother today, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's very calming and helpful.
Well, and I hear this a lot from members, and I love it's my favorite thing to hear, honestly, is that the movement is a moving meditation, and that the cueing is just calming. Like, somehow the cueing is like this strange lullaby of sorts.
Yeah.
And I do think it's really important, and full circle back to the Minoan culture as far as Crete and goddesses and that divine feminine nature of receiving. From the very beginning, when we launched, I wanted people to be in receiving, because before that, I had been in a space of, like, only high dollar clients could have personal trainers all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, I get it, but people should be able to experience what it's like to have a personal trainer. And it's very different to have a good coach than to press play on a typical workout.
Oh, completely different. It really is. Yeah, what you offer is so unique. I mean, that's why I tell everybody I know about it, because it is absolutely what we all need right now as a collective. And if you're already out there feeling like you want to be aligned with the cycles, to be more aligned with your body, to be more centered, then it's for you. So yeah.
It's for all the witchy woo-woo lunar goddesses out there. um, well, okay. Are there ways that our members can follow you? Your
Yeah.
Grammy?
I have a website. It's katelynalain.com. I don't know if you can put it in the little
Totally will.
notes or something.
Yep.
And I'm also on Instagram, and my handle is at Katelyn Alain. So it's pretty straightforward.
I appreciate that.
And I mean, I do have a Facebook page, but I'm really not on Facebook very much at all. And because I'm not, the algorithm has punished me and like two people. So I kind of have given up on that, even though my Instagram does share to my Facebook page. I haven't. It's facebook.com Katelyn Alain Art, which is my Facebook page. But otherwise, I'm not really on that at all. So. Instagram or my website.
Facebook, I can't seem to leave it because our members are there. And our private group has been there for years, but our members tend to go like this, and they visit the private group and they do nothing else.
Right. Which would be me if I decided to go on there. For me, it's risky business, though. I'm like, nope, don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, like no, thank you. Yeah, it's a very it is the thing that I personally, battle with being online and for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today, for being a unicorn in this world. Your work is gorgeous and stunning, and I can't wait to see what comes next. And I'm so glad we had this time today too, that I want to just hang out some more.
Me too. Let's do it in the future.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. It's just such a joy to have you on my little screen and get on the mat every day and see your face. So thank you for having me here.
Of course. So for anyone who's interested in finding and following all the ways to connect with Katelyn's work, I'll have the links below in the description, and we'll link to them in our newsletter as well to make it super easy. Plus, if you want to explore unicornwellnessstudio.com, you can always come as my guest for 30 days like Katelyn did, see if it's for you or not. And I'll have all the links below for all the ways to explore unicorn wellness. Lots of free, non-committal ways to see if it's your jam, as well as the book, the Unicorn Wellness Handbook on Amazon. So if this resonates with you on the physical level, the mental level, the emotional level, or the energetic level, thank you, and we hope to see you on the mat or in one of our virtual full moon rituals every month until we have been released from our
from purgatory.
All right, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Love you too. Bye.